Young tech is changing the business technology for tomorrow. We're looking at talking about how our startups in artificial intelligence, digital transformation, SaaS, productivity, cloud thinking, different are thinking differently from the big tech. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are happy that we have with us our panelists. First up, Akash Singh, co-founder and chief technology officer, Observe.ai. Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for joining us. We're also joined by Kadeem Bhatti from Whatfix. Thank you so much, Kadeem, for taking out your valuable time today. We're also joined by Arvind Pani, the co-founder and CEO, Reverie Language Technologies. Thank you so much, Arvind, for joining us and giving us your valuable time. And also Sudhanshu Mittal, head COE, Gurugram and Director Technology, Technical Solutions, NASSCOM Center of Excellence. So thank you so much, Mr. Mittal, for joining us and also giving us your valuable time. So ladies and gentlemen, these are your eminent panelists who have joined us on your stage and screen. And as you can see that an elaborate introduction is also displayed for the same. But these are eminent personalities which the industry definitely knows about. So thank you so much for giving us your valuable time. And with this, I'd like to pass it to our chair, Mr. Mittal, to take it forward with his panel. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Bhavna. So good evening, everybody. And I hope that this session is informative and enjoyable for all the participants. And thank you very much for your time and participation. So as we look at the role of the technology and the players who are there are the established players in the country, the companies like the HCL and Infosys and the Wipro and all those other players, which have started the IT industry in the country in a way. But then now, as we move forward into the next stage of the IT revolution, what we find is that there are young entrepreneurs who are coming up and capturing the niche areas in the domain of the IoT and the AI and the machine learning. And what they are doing is to apply these upcoming technologies into different areas to solve the problems. In some of the cases, the problems are the kind of problems which actually have been there for decades, but then they were not even realized as a problems. If you look at some of the sectors like the manufacturing and healthcare and the kind of role that technology is playing into those sectors, we find that the solutions which are there are solving the problems which productivity problems and the quality problems and the work-related problems and everything. Those issues were there, but then they were never realized as an issue. They were simply realized, considered as the cost of doing business. But now with the role of the technology, we are able to question even those costs and try to see as to how to eliminate those, how to reduce those, and how to go further than where we have been so far. Now, we have in our eminent panel the entrepreneurs who are developing those technology solutions. I would like each one of them to introduce themselves, what key technologies they are developing, what kind of key markets they are serving, and what kind of impacts their technology solutions are making in those particular markets. So with that, we will start, and I will invite Mr. Khadim first. So Khadim, if you can just briefly talk about the specific technologies that are being developed and kind of markets you are serving and the impact that you are able to make here. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mittal, and thanks for inviting me to the panel. So before I explain the technology what we are building, I just give you a quick context actually, right? So if you look at how the cloud has grown rapidly, and there's a democratization of purchase of softwares. So if you look at any companies which are few thousand employees and about today, they have 1,000+ software applications deployed. What does it mean? When it comes to an individual employee, now they have access to 40 to 50 of those softwares, and they need to use them to make their life more efficient and effective in day-to-day activities. Right? And from the company's perspective, they are spending these hundreds of millions of dollars on digital transformation so that they can improve their efficiency, productivity in the organization, and pass on those benefits to the customers. But the bottom line here is, unless and until the softwares are getting utilized effectively, I think that ROI is always a question mark, right? And there's hundreds of millions of dollars what we are spending. And if you look from the user perspective or employee perspective, everything has gone on demand, right? Like your Netflix, your Amazon purchase, Uber cars and everything, right? But how the softwares are getting trained, learned, or support is being provided, that is still, it was very legacy. Like you create a support ticket, answer comes after 48 hours. If you're stuck somewhere, you need to go to knowledge base, read an article which is outside of the context, right? So there was a need of creating an experience layer for an user so that they can do the job efficiently for underlying software systems. And this experience layer has to be just in time, like on demand or proactive, and which can actually navigate or help users step by step. So you can, in a simple layman terms, it's like a GPS which helps you navigate on the road, something which can navigate on the applications. So that's what, in a nutshell, is WhatFix. Basically, it's a new category which is now called as digital adoption, with where basically we try to help employees and end users to adopt any software and maximize the outcome from there. We have more than 400 customers globally. Primarily, we are catering to enterprises. We have more than 100 Fortune 1000 companies which are working with WhatFix. To give an example, we are helping top credit management company globally like Experian in their implementation, or you can say deriving the benefits of Salesforce or the sales automation. Largest manpower workforce management company called Manpower. You can say on the pharma side, healthcare side, Cardinal Health, which is Fortune 20, Grifols. On technology companies like Cisco. So across sectors and across industries, wherever there's a huge deployments of software, WhatFix is becoming very effective. Primarily, we are heavily dominant on the US market. 70% of our revenue comes from there, followed by Europe and a bit of APAC. Yeah, so that would be in terms of impact. If I have to go a little deeper there, so based on what deployment of WhatFix, what we have seen across our customers, the productivity on the top of any software goes up by 20 to 30% for an employee. Whereas the time it takes for training, which was earlier classrooms or people need to spend a lot of effort in reading and going through documentations, that time to train and get ramped up has reduced by 40 to 60% across several of our customers. As well as the support tickets, which used to arise because of getting stuck somewhere, has come down by more than 50%. And the most important, majority of the softwares, or all the softwares which were purchased so far, were system of records. And system of records are heavily reliant on people filling up information accurately and completely, so that it can be used for predictability or forecasting inside an organization. So that accuracy of data and the completeness has improved by 20-30%. So these are the few impacts what we have seen, and the category what we are in.
Thank you very much, Kadim. Just one question here for the purpose of clarification. One of the biggest challenge which is there when we try to educate the people or educate the employees or skill the employees in use of software is that as to what kind of prior background they have in terms of being able to work with the technology. And that's one of the serious challenge which is there, especially when we are talking about the manufacturing industry. They come from a legacy area, and while they say that I can work with technology because I'm using a smartphone, that is not really what working with technology actually means. So using your software, are you able to bring down even that bar, that those who are not at all technology savvy, they are also able to move further quicker into that? If you can just shortly elaborate that part.
Yes, I think very good point, Mr. Mittal. Actually, exactly right. So if somebody is new to the software, if somebody is new to the software, using the software for the first time, if somebody changes an organization and they're coming across using the software which is completely different what they were using earlier, or the company deploys a new software which is first time and employees are using. So either of these cases, actually, WhatFix simplifies it a lot for people to adopt. And most important, let's say if there is a set of employees inside an organization, if you can cohort them, that these are the employees which actually are using for the first time. These are power users. These are set of users who want to replicate some of the good practices. Actually, accordingly, WhatFix-based coaching can be actually cohorted and people can actually make use of it. We have also seen some great examples, like many a times softwares are in English, but then people want to use in different languages. So WhatFix can create a coaching layer on top of it, which can navigate persons into their respective language, what they can understand, irrespective of the underlying software. If it's in English, if you want to get trained on, let's say, local language like Gujarati or Marathi or French or Japanese. So that's another use case we have seen.
Thank you. Now I will go to Akash. Akash, so if you can just mute yourself and share your thoughts about your solutions and the impact that they are making.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sudhanshu and Kadim, for that brief introduction about your company. This is a very relevant topic for us. So the industry which we are in is the customer support industry, and it's a very old legacy industry, right? This industry has been there 30, 40 years, right? And the kind of competitors we deal are very old systems, very old technology, right? To give you some examples, like some of the systems which are old customers used to use would take like say 10-15 seconds for generating reports, right? Or even say, so I've heard this joke where what people used to say is, if you need something on the dashboard, you go click, you do a click, you go back, make your coffee and come back, and that's when you those systems would work, right? So just creating a new version of software in the market creates so much more value because you build your product on top of new technology stack, right? By default, the expectation is that your product should just work, right? So that's been said, right? We as a company has a very high level vision of
Akash,
create.
you have a
Yeah,
network problem. If you can, I think you may be better off by switching off your video. There's a
let me
network
do
problem.
that. Let me do
Yes,
that.
yes,
Is it better now?
yes.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. So on a very high level, we at Observe are trying to create the AI layer of the contact center, right? And that's our high level vision. And to align with that, we do have like few products out there in the market. One of them being automating quality assurance process in contact centers, right? So for example, right, whenever you call Airtel, you would have heard this message saying that this call might be recorded for quality and compliance purposes, right? So what happens behind the scenes is there's a manual team who manually listens to a very small subset of calls and reviews them, right? This process is very time taking. The amount of data which you collect is very small. Only 1 or 2% of the calls are being evaluated, right? Then we came in and we said, use our product will help you in evaluating 100% of your calls, right? And that too very efficiently and very fast way, right? What this does is basically helps in improving the two biggest numbers for any company, increasing the CSAT score, right, which is essentially your customer satisfaction score, right? And then which is related to increasing the top line of the company. And our product also helps in reducing the bottom line of the company, which is essentially making your agents, your contact center more efficient and hence saving money for you. So that's like the high level impact we have. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So thank you very much, Akash. Uh, Now, if I were to, let's say, go a little bit deep dive into that, could you take a specific example of as to the actual impact which is made by your software? I mean, just take any specific example of the analytics part with whether it is Airtel or with whichever any of your customer. You don't need to share any confidential information or name if you don't want to, but it will be good to know as to how
Right.
this actually makes a difference.
And so we do have like a lot of case studies around how our product has helped customers, right? In one of the case studies, uh, one of our customer was able to save a couple of million in claims, right? And that was more of a compliance industry where they were able to figure out behaviors of agents which they were not supposed to do, right? So we mainly operate in US, right? The majority of our customers are based out of US, and they do have a lot of compliances like much more heavier than India for sure. Compliances around how you're talking to people and what kind of things you can expose to them, right? And using our product, you can basically find needle in haystack across millions of your calls. If you want to figure out a certain behavior, you can do that, right? And using that behavior, one of our customers was able to save millions in claims, right? So there was few customers, some of the agents, our customers were violating compliance, and because of that, if they would have been reported, they would have ended up paying millions to those uh, to settle those lawsuits, right? So that was one of the case studies. The other case study which we had was uh, making agents more efficient, right? So we were able to drive around 20% reduction in first call resolution, right? So what that means, I'll explain what that's a very technical thing, right? So whenever you call Airtel, right, what's the percentage of call that gets resolved on the first call, right? So usually what happens is if the contact center is not very good, you'll have to call them multiple times, right? So this is a metrics called FCR, first call resolution, that's been very heavily tracked by all the support functions, right? So we were able to increase this number by 20% for one of the biggest travel e-commerce companies globally. I can't take their name right now, but yeah, I think we all of us would have used that company. So these are the two case studies I have on top of my mind right now.
Thank you, Akash. Very interesting case studies. And we may come back to this in case there are some more queries from the audience. Now we'll go to Arvind. And Arvind, if you don't mind sharing some of your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mittal, and pleasure to, although virtually, pleasure to be in front of all of you today. Good afternoon. I also wanted to give a little bit of perspective before I wanted to tell you what exactly we do. As you can see, the background which is there on my screen, the vision of our company is language equality on the internet. So I'll just explain what it means. Now, if you take India as a country, English is an aspirational language. We have a history of being ruled by the British, which is where the English influence came into our country. And somehow we believe that with English, we will be able to address all the people in our country. But if you take all the traditional media, whether you take print, whether you take television, you take radio, cinemas, about 95 to 96% of the engagement by the end user in all these media actually happens in Indian languages, not in English. But unfortunately, what has happened, and the reason the reason why there is such high engagement in these media in Indian languages is equality of access. To be able to access all of these media that I just mentioned, a user who prefers to engage in Indian languages doesn't have to do anything different from a user who wants to engage in English language. But that is unfortunately not true when it comes to internet. So internet got built ground up in English, and there is a very large barrier for anybody who does not understand English to be able to use the internet in India, right? And while for inclusion in India, when we are talking about digital inclusion, there are two large problems that India has been able to solve. One is the channel of access, which is affordable touch devices, smart devices that can be bought by the masses. Second one is infrastructure. Again, affordable infrastructure, which is access to data, pervasiveness of data and access to data. These two problems have largely been solved. But what has still continued to cripple the use of internet in India is really the lack of user experience in Indian languages. And in my opinion, we will never be able to realize the complete potential of the internet, or for that matter, complete potential of our country, if we are continuing to believe that it is only English through which our country will progress. I will also give you a very fundamental example. So in Indian Constitution, there are fundamental rights which are listed, right? So right to equality, right to freedom, right to education, right to judicial justice, and those kind of stuff. Now, if you take any of these, it is not possible to really exercise our fundamental rights without having right to choose our language. So today, if we are talking about right to education, it actually eventually means right to education in English. Because if I choose to be educated in my language, which is not English, then there is very limited scope for me in my own country. So that's the problem that we are trying to solve using technology. And Reverie has been working on language technologies. Now, there are three areas that we have bucketed to be able to solve the user experience in Indian languages. Any entity that needs to engage with the end users first needs to have content in those languages. So we have few products that can enable companies to have their applications, their websites, their content be available in multiple languages in very quick time. Now, once content is there, then comes the need that users need to interact with the entities on an ongoing basis, either through text interface or through voice interface. So we have built technologies for voice as well, like speech to text, text to speech. And then, of course, the ability, for example, the way we are speaking, the machine's ability to be able to interpret these language of human beings and then interpret in a way where continuous engagement or action can be maintained between businesses as well as the end users. So this is what we have been doing in terms of impact. We work with government. Very recently, if you would see the MyGov website, which has the MyGov COVID website, that has gone live in 10 languages using our platform. Then we have enabled telemedicine. So telemedicine helpline also during pandemic, right? So a very simple script of telemedicine, which may take about, say, anywhere between 72 to 96 hours to make it up and running through a conventional process. Using our technology, it has been possible to make it live in 3 to 4 hours time, right? And we also work with large enterprises. So for example, if doctor's appointment needs to be booked with the patients, and even if the patient and doctors and hospital, clinic, all those data are available at the back end in English, at the time of appointment booking, those things can be done in local languages. So these are some of the examples which are there. There are numerous other examples. So essentially our market is, we are completely focused in India, and through our platform, through our technologies, we are enabling government and other entities to be able to engage with their end users in their languages.
Very good, Arvind. This is a very, very interesting solution that you are talking about, and it is extremely critical, as you said in the beginning, that right to be educated in my own language, so that instead of being focused or spending so much of time in basically focusing on English, I'm going to focus more on getting the education. So it's an extremely critical part here. So going forward, what is your focus? I believe you have reached around 10 odd languages, which is what you said, right? So far, 10 languages?
No. So the Constitution of India identifies 22 languages with official status. Although if we take, yes, there are many other languages, if we take dialect also, then there are several in India. So we definitely address all of these 22 languages.
Okay.
Out of those, there are about 11 languages which are more popular, and these 11 languages cover about 80 to 85% of the user base.
So now, after these 22 languages, do you also have the any objective of, let's say, going global into this? Because if you are able to create this kind of platform which can work in different type of languages, and some of those Indian languages are extremely complex, where the script is so different. So do you also have the plans of going global? Because that is another thing which I want to take here, that the global applicability of the solutions which are being developed by the Indian companies. So I can start with you itself directly. How do you see as a global applicability of the solution?
So like I mentioned, our primary focus is India. The problem in India itself is very large. But having said that, there are 1 or 2 products that we have that are kind of language agnostic, right? So we have a platform called Anuvadak that can be used to publish a website instantly in any language, right? So that could be used not just for Indian languages, but for any other language. Similarly, we also have a product called Prabandhak, which is for the translation services industry, and that could be used by any of the language service providers working on any language globally.
Okay, that is good to know. So thank you very much for sharing your inputs and your knowledge, and it's really very useful solution as we go forward. So sticking to the same point again, the global applicability of the solutions being developed by India, and let's go in the reverse order. So perhaps Akash, can you share some thoughts on the global applicability of the work which is being done by you?
So unfortunately, we just build for the global audience. We don't have customers in India. So this doesn't apply to us. Basically, we are just building for them. It's not as if we are building for people in India, and how does that get applied to people in the US or some other country. So that doesn't apply to us,
right.
Unfortunately.
Right. In fact, your use case study also, you talked about the customers in the US.
Yes.
So tell me one thing now. I mean, since you're talking in the reverse direction here, what do you see as the challenge in your kind of solution being adopted by the customers in India? Do you see a challenge into that?
Definitely, definitely. One of the initial feedback which I got from people when we were building this company is uh, build the product for the country you want to sell in, right? So if say build a product in India, I think this is the general feedback that people in India want cheaper products, right? They don't want to pay that much for the products, right? And the conversation finally boils down to how cheap can you give your product, right? And in the US, it's the other way around. People want quality, people want your product to solve problems, and money comes later, right? So definitely, our product would be very, very costly if we start selling in India. That would definitely be there, right? In terms of workflows, also, right? So the other issue we'll have if we start selling in India is our product works for only US speaking people. We don't. We'll have to build the entire product for Indian languages, so it will definitely not work in India.
Okay, the product is very interesting, and it would be good to see this being used by the Indian customers also. But then it's not there, so fine. Kadim, let's come to you. So the solution that you talked about, the technology areas. So do you see how do you see the applicability of that for the different customers, global customers?
Yep. So we started from India actually. With first 8 to 10 customers were in India, and then we decided that okay, let's go global to the developed world because the early adopters, people would move fast, decision making will be quicker, price point pressure would not be there. So that's how we started going behind the US market primarily. So as I was mentioning earlier, that majority of our revenue, almost 90% of our revenue today, comes from US plus a couple of countries in Europe. But having said that, it's applicable in across the globe, including India. And we do have customers in India using us. To give an example, ICICI is using us on the corporate banking platform. Mahindra Commonwealth is using in the several applications. Wipro is using in a couple of applications internally, right? So, and there are several other customers. So wherever there's a need for handholding or user onboarding or making the user understand your software and adopt them, that the Whatfix can be applied. Now, why we would not go very broad, or why it would take a little bit more time going to the exponential growth, or you can say mass deployment in India. Again, to some extent, I would resonate what Akash also mentioned. Actually, digital transformation overall is still actually it's happening rapidly in India, but still it's nascent stage compared to many other international countries. So once the digitization happens, once the companies adopt hundreds of softwares across their organization, that's where they would start feeling the next pain of adoption. And that's where Whatfix would come. So it's a matter of time. Of course, many more companies would adopt. Interesting point is like last couple of quarters, in a few quarters, we have seen very good traction of Whatfix in government sectors. Like just to give an example, council in Canning, in Perth, in Moorabbin in Australia, several government departments in US, they've started adopting Whatfix so that they can actually use that power to make sure that the citizens, if they want to notify them, if citizens want to utilize their software or their application websites or something, can be more seamless. So similarly, I do see a lot of applications similarly can be applied to India. I think it's just a matter of time. The organizations in India and get warm to look for convenience or efficiency and appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm quite sure of it. The kind of solution which you have is the kind of solution which would have the global market. So now after this part, we'll come to a little bit to the policy part. There was some interest from the participants earlier that what is the impact of the Government of India policy. So I will start a little bit from there. I'm part of the NESCOM Center of Excellence for IoT and AI. This center is part of the Digital India Initiative by the Ministry of Electronics and IT for the purpose of promoting innovation in the domain of IoT and AI, and also promote the adoption of technology. So just promoting the innovation by the developers, innovators, and the startups is not sufficient unless you are able to do something to promote the adoption of technology also. So we work on both the sides. We support the startups into their development activities through physical co-working space, hardware lab, which we have engagement with our partners, cloud credits, the knowledge sessions in different areas, go-to-market sessions, fundraising sessions, technical sessions, intellectual property, and all those things. And apart from that, we work with the stakeholders. Stakeholders in the manufacturing, in the technology solution IT sector, in the healthcare sector, to promote the adoption of the solutions which are being developed by the startups. And as part of this, MIT has approved 5 centers throughout the country. First one started in Bangalore, second one in Gurgaon, and third one in Gandhinagar, inside IIT Gandhinagar, fourth one in Vizag, and fifth one is yet to be decided. And each center is in partnership with different state governments. So it's not just the central government which is promoting innovation. The state governments are also doing their part. They are pitching forward. All those different state governments are pitching forward and doing their bit to promote the innovation in the domain of those digital technologies. And that's my focus area, because and that's what I know about. So now coming to the participants, and perhaps you can start again in the reverse order, start from Khadim. Do you see any impact of the government policies on the work which you are doing? And if there are any particular inputs you may wish to share as to what needs to be done by the government in terms of fixing the policies?
Yeah, so Mr. Mittal, actually, overall, I have not explored the policies much. I may not have much input, but definitely one point I might like to add, because a lot of innovations are happening. Like we have seen, like what work with Reverie, Arvind, and Akash team in Observe and all they are doing. There is application across government sectors, and also if maybe if government can promote with some policies and adoption of latest new innovation in government sectors, I think that will be a big boost to the startup world. But yeah, but since I have not gone into deeper, it will be hard to comment on specific policies from my side.
Yes, so I believe that since you have not gone deeper, means you have not really explored working with the government, or your as of now your work is not impacted by the government, and that's where there is a problem. I mean, the particular input which you have given about government adopting this kind of innovative solutions, the governments are very ill-suited to adopt the innovative solutions. Their structure for adoption is for traditional structure where the things have to be already proven. That has already been proven, because innovation has word failure built into this. You cannot have innovation without failure. If you are saying that I am only going to use the tried and tested solutions, then obviously they are not going to be innovative. They will be innovative in some particular context that somebody else doesn't have it, or that we are working with, but then fundamentally they cannot be innovative if they are not ready to accept any kind of failure. So I've been trying to work with the state government for a long time, but structurally they are absolutely unsuited for this purpose. Coming to Arvind, so Arvind, do you have any inputs on this front?
Yeah, of course. So see, there are various aspects to policies. In fact, it was very recently, about a couple of years back, that government mandated that every phone that sells in India should have the ability to display the 22 official languages and the ability to type at least 3 languages: English, Hindi, and the language of the state in which the phone is selling. Now, as far as policies related to Indian languages are concerned, there are a lot of things that India should really be aware of and take charge of. I will give you a couple of things which are kind of stand out, very glaring. Now, the body that defines the standard for encoding of languages, all languages, which is Unicode, that does not have, India is not even a voting member in that consortium, despite the fact that India is the second largest internet user base in the world. Okay. The second one is that I will give you an analogy or an example comparing with English for all of us to be able to understand that. Now, English has got 26 alphabets is a universal truth. I mean, nobody disputes that. It is taught in school also that English has got 26 alphabets, and we all know, anybody who has learned English knows what those 26 alphabets are. But today, although India has got many languages, even if we pick Hindi, which is kind of 40% of India's population that speaks Hindi, and we say how many characters are there in Hindi, we are likely to get inconsistent responses. Nobody will be able to give that response correctly. The reason also for that is we do not know what's right. So there is a set of characters which are taught in school to kids, right? But the characters which are reflecting in our standards, which are defined by this kind of consortium, they are different. So Hindi, for example, has about 52 characters, but the way the digital representation or the standardization is there, it has got 62 characters. Now, come to think of it, the kids who are studying Hindi and they are taught that Hindi has got 52 characters, when they grow up and they start using the internet, and suddenly there are 10 more characters which are exposed to them, what is going to be their reaction? It is like someone coming and telling us that English has got 35 characters. Now you figure out how to use English language. So these are kind of, if we really look at proliferation of our internet in our languages, then these are fundamental things that needs to be sorted. And the longer these kind of issues remain and more content gets built on top of a faulty system that we already have, we are likely to see huge amount of challenges in searching of content, indexing of content, and those kind of challenges are already there. They are different ways. And Indian language content are starting to grow and grow exponentially. So these kind of needs, these kind of challenges need to be fixed. And these are areas where government can definitely play a huge role from policy and regulatory standpoint.
Yeah. And since I've been part of some standardization committee also, especially with the BIS, I have seen this particular problem that even when they look for participation, because they themselves do not really have the technical expertise to be able to go to those committees and try to address the issues. They rely upon the industry. But then the industry participation into all those ways practically nil. It is extremely hard to get any meaningful industry participation for when the BIS is, let's say, organizing a meeting. And I assume that even if this were to start, it will again go through BIS because BIS is the body mandated for all these activities.
Yeah.
Right. So how to really address this kind of problem? That to get the Indian industry to be interested in participation in the standardization activities.
So the way to address is, now I mentioned about the problem, and Reverie is also more than happy to, in fact, we have a blueprint of the recommendations that need to be done differently to be able to address this standardization issues. And we would be more than happy to take lead in some of the things that we have seen that could kind of hinder the progress here. The practicality of the suggestions that come through. Now, which is where, like you rightly mentioned, industry participation is required to come up with solutions and recommendations which are practical and that will enhance the usability. Now, there could be recommendations which are purely for academic purposes, but they may not be very practical to solve the problem that the users are facing. So my short answer to that one is that to be able to involve experts who can give proper recommendations and involve more of industry, right, to be able to solve the practical challenges. And I would be more than happy to participate and give the blueprint of the recommendations that we have of what needs to be done. And I just mentioned one or two challenges. There are, in fact, 3 or 4 important ones that need to be addressed, and we would be more than happy to share our recommendations there.
Okay, thank you very much, Arvind. Akash, if you have any inputs shortly, because I would like to go to the Q&A part here. So if there is something to be shared in this area, then please share. Otherwise, we'll just go to the Q&A now.
Right. So not as such, but I do believe that in India we do need government level privacy policy as how data of our users is being used, right? And for example, like we have had issues in the past where there are these smartphones from other countries, and by default the data is on, right? And everything, whatever you are doing, your messages, your bank account details, everything is sent to the other company servers, and we don't even know how that is being used, right? So as a country, we need to take some strict measures as to how the data of the citizens of this country is being used, right? I do believe, and as and when we have new type of technologies coming in, right? Conversational AI, we have Alexas and all the other home smart speakers, right? All of them are collecting our data, right? So we need like a government to enforce policy, right? At least the data of these users should not go out of India, or maybe some sort of other policies in that area.
Okay, thank you very much, Rakesh. I believe the government is already addressing this particular data privacy part. So I hope that it gets addressed in a comprehensive manner there. They are already there. So now with this, you take up the questions. So there is first question here. There is question from Milan Chavla, which is, as the session details says, there are big techs already. Why is that startups in the tech are able to crave their niche? Is it because big tech did not find it lucrative? If so, how are the startups making ROI? So I believe that the answer possibly would become somewhat similar from all of you, but if let's say who can take it first? Maybe Akash can take it first.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons is these large companies are very, very slow to innovate. Right, that's for sure. They take ton of time in innovating. The other reasons is it depends on the kind of company. It's difficult for very old companies to attract good talent as well, right? So if you're a new age company like ours, it's very easy for us to attract the best of the best minds out there. Versus if you look at company which is 25 years old, 30 years old, maybe like TCS and Infosys, I think it will be very, very difficult for them to attract the kind of people we are able to attract at this point of time. I think there's just two different challenges. One, they are being slow, and the second is the kind of talent these companies would attract.
Okay. Any other point if Arvind or Khadim can add to what Akash has said? Any additional point?
Yeah, a couple of quick points maybe I want to add. So many times what happens, this innovation, what startups do, they are not the core for the large enterprises. Like let's say what we are doing in digital adoption or what Reverie or they are doing. So may not be very core, and generally enterprises tend to focus what moves the needle, what is their core, right? Like Microsoft, if you look, they'll be focusing more on operating systems or they'll be focusing on the CRM and all. So sometimes they ignore this particular niches, and also when initially when you look at the niche, it sounds small. It, as also Milan has mentioned in that question as well, like it sounds small, but when you start going deeper and deeper, the application and new use cases keeps coming up, right? Like even when we started, we thought our market size is maybe a few $100 million. But as we started going deeper and we started finding new use cases, new industry applicability, suddenly now it looks like, okay, then in my market size is around $7 to $10 billion. So it takes time to explore, go deep into the niche. Sometimes it's not a core. If it's a large enterprise, they need something which can move the needle from 1 billion to 2 billion rather than from 1 million to 5 million, like what startups will be fine with. I thought that was a few reasons which, apart from what Akash mentioned, I would say.
Okay, perfect. Arvind, anything you wish to add to this, or if not, then we'll move to the next question.
So all I would like to mention is that at some point in time, the big tech of today were also a startup at some point in time. So
Yes.
they focused on a specific problem, and then they, like Khadim mentioned, they started discovering a lot more before they became big. So it's really unfair to compare, saying that the problems that the startup are focusing right now are not the ones that are found lucrative by the big tech companies. So these are new problems, new challenges which the startups are focusing on, and you never know. I mean, some of these startups could become very, very big.
Okay. Thank you very much, Arvind. The second question I will take myself. It says that conversational AI coming into the space and taking over call centers and is proved to be efficient and cost effective. Do you think this AI is cutting away more and more human jobs? So this is a fundamental problem or the paradox that we see whenever there is a new technology coming in. If you go back in time and we start seeing the advent of computers in the 80s, there was this serious concern that it will come and take away the job because, for instance, the tele software which came in the beginning in early 90s, there was this big concern raised by everybody that now with this accounting software being there, the job of accountants will cut down because you don't need to maintain all those heavy, massive ledgers, and it will be available automatically in a software which anybody can do and all. But then eventually what we see is that yes, certain jobs are not there anymore, but then many more jobs, new jobs get created, and also the market expands. Overall pie also expands. I mean, this argument will be fundamentally against improving the efficiency. If you said if your system starts becoming more efficient, will it cut down the jobs? Possibly in certain area, but then it is going to increase the overall pie. So while you may see some particular kind of jobs which were there earlier, repetitive jobs and the low-end jobs getting cut down, many more new jobs get created. Now, when we see this use of AI, there are other type of jobs which are being created in developing more and more solutions. AI is coming and solving more problems into those different areas which you could not even think of before. before the advent of the AI modules which we have. And the examples are right here. All of our participants have been talking about solving the problems using the AI, the kind of problems which were never even considered a problem, which were there, which goes right in the beginning of what I was saying, that we are solving the problems which have been there for decades, but then they were not even considered that there is a problem or there is any solution or it needs to be done because it was just taken as the cost of doing business. But now with this technology advancement, yes, certain things are getting eliminated or becoming more efficient, but then new things are also coming up. So there is no point in trying to think that it's going to take away the jobs. Ultimately, we are going to have many more jobs created and much higher efficiency into the system, and the pie is going to start becoming larger and larger. So that's how we see that we should be looking at the technology. The next one is Anupama. Can you share some digital tools that help SMEs store, manage, analyze, and transform data into insights for business decision making? I think it's a very high level question here because it depends upon what kind of data you are talking about and what kind of insights you are talking about. We are talking about all those insights over here. In fact, even this what if also, and then the solution which has been there by the Akash. This also is about the insight and then being able to address the problems. But I will still pass it on to our participants here. Akash, maybe you can just do a quick input onto this. If you can start with that very quick one, please.
I think you can use something like Snowflake, which is essentially a data lake, and then you can you pump in all of your data from all your applications into the servers, and then you can run all the analytics and report. Like just Google Snowflake and you will find the answer.
Perfectly fine. Then this one is, do you think that regional language speaking internet user will soon take over English speaking internet users in India anytime soon? And what will that change? Will that change companies the way it communicates with its customer? Or will that change companies the way it communicates with its customer? So Arvind, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, sure. So it is not a question of whether regional language speaking internet users will overtake English users. In terms of numbers, it has happened. But in terms of quality, it is not there yet. What I mean by that is, it's pretty straightforward. In terms of numbers today, we have more number of internet users who don't prefer English, but want to engage in Indian languages. That is quantity. Qualitatively, what are the things that they can do? Okay, they can't do much because the quality of experience on the internet in Indian languages is still very poor. There are various reasons for that. One is that we are carrying through a momentum of the internet itself getting built in English. So there is a perception that English audience is kind of niche. There are several myths. One is that English audience is, they have the purchasing power and primarily urban and apart from demographics, age group. And then Indian language users are supposed to be classified in different categories, which are all myths, which are actually not true. If those were the case, then we wouldn't have seen the success of other media, like I mentioned earlier, television and cinema, print, flourishing in Indian languages. In fact, if you take into account the channels like MTV and Star TV, they all came to India with English only bouquet of channels, but they failed miserably. And today, if you see, majority of their content are actually local languages. They have a fraction of content in Indian languages. So the business decision makers are mostly English speaking, so they don't understand the pain of English, the non-English audience. So they continue to take decisions where there is so much of investment into to getting the user experience right for English language. But for Indian languages, there is not much of focus. It is still about, okay, so can we do some translation here and there? And that is where we are meeting the need of local languages, right? So that perception and therefore those kind of execution also needs to change. I will give you a very simple example. Now we have 1 billion, more than 1 billion Aadhaar card users. And some time back, there was an initiative by the government that was trying to link Aadhaar with PAN card. And all of us have received messages about that, and hundreds of messages in fact. not one message came in Indian language. Every single message was in English. So what that does with this audience, which is already there, this large number of, much more than the English speaking audience, which is connected to the internet, they are able to only engage with low friction content, music, pictures, video, and we have a wrong perception that that is all that they want to do. They are being forced to do that because there are no other means. Like I gave an example. I mean, what would you do if you get a complete instruction set of linking PAN and Aadhaar only in English if I don't understand English? So those are some of the things that I think are required for businesses and decision makers to be aware of, that what will deliver a good, really rich experience in Indian languages on the internet to drive more engagement.
Thank you, Arvind. That is comprehensive inputs. So now we'll take up the next one. When we'll see the government department adopting technology, we are still at physical files dependent. What is stopping the adoption? That's a very difficult question to answer actually, because I have my own experience in working with the government departments. Although having said this, the government departments are adopting technology. It's not as if they are not. They are adopting technology. If I see, let's say, if I take the simple example of paying property taxes sitting in Delhi, I have not done the offline payment for last 10 years at least. I am doing it online. Income tax department has been adopting technology, and now you are able to very easily file your return, especially at the salaried persons do not have too much of business income and all that. There you are very easily able to file the income tax returns, rather than earlier when you used to file the forms and then claim submission and everything, which used to take a long time. And the other departments also, which are in the process of adopting technology. So it's not as if that that they are not adopting technology. There is a pressure coming in from the top, and there is a kind of competition also between the governments, that how can I be more efficient in doing the adoption, because they also realize that if their own operations are not efficient, private businesses will go away. They will not be able to attract the required investment in their own states. So the CMs of the states have become kind of almost like the CEO of the corporates, or beginning to become the CEOs of the corporates. They are moving in that direction. So it's not as if they are not adopting. Somebody may come and say that yes, adoption is slow, it can be faster, and which will agree, but then there are still a lot of challenges. Sometimes challenges are in the form of specific technology solutions to their problems, and sometimes the challenges are structural, organizational. The issues around data privacy start coming into the picture. To give a particular example, when we are looking at, let's say, COVID problem, for instance, one of the easiest things for the government would have been to create the online or real-time hotspot of somebody who has COVID, and then see who are the potentially impacted, and go and try to do the isolation and address those. But then that cannot be done under the Indian laws because of the data privacy issues. The CDR data cannot be accessed directly by the state governments. You have to go through a particular channel, the Home Ministry and all, and then you are able to access the data. And then so instead of being real time, it becomes offline. While in case of China, it is real time. They are able to bypass everything straight away. The telcos will provide data, and the dashboard will be there. And in the real time, you can see as to what is the impact of the particular person being there, or whichever way. So it is moving. Adoption is not stopped. It is moving ahead, and going forward, we will see more and more adoption happening. The governments realize, and they work with us, and they come and say to us that we cannot solve the problem of the country, especially let's say in the area of the healthcare, even in maintaining the land records and everything, without the technology. But then the technology has to meet our problems. In far too many cases, the technology solutions are not suited. They are not suited for the Indian conditions. So I expect that we'll continue seeing more and more adoptions happening through the government, and ultimately more efficiency into the system. If any of the panelists has anything to add to this, you can do that. But that's what my experience has been in this particular area. Okay. The last question: how can young tech help democratize software creation, especially SaaS-based companies witnessing major growth that brought about by increasing demand for data tools and automation? And in the current crisis, what does that hold for the future engagement upon tech giants? I think this particular question will fall perhaps within the domain of Khadim, because the kind of solution that you are talking about, which is helping with the adoption. I mean, you can do the creation, but then unless you are able to promote or do something which makes it easy for your software to be used and adopted, you cannot really make a success. But then I will I'll let Khadim talk about that.
Yeah. So I would see this question in two ways. One is actually software is already democratized because now it's so easy to like for engineers to get together. Doesn't matter where they are globally. Like they can be in any village in any part of the world. They can quickly build the software, and with the cloud, they can actually easily deploy and deliver any part of the world. And now with the current crisis, what everybody is going through this pandemic, I think it has actually accelerated the change in behavior. Now, even for selling the software, people don't need to meet in person, right? Everybody is now okay to get into the Zoom call or a video call and look at the software demos and actually purchase. So I think all this has actually quite dramatically democratized actually creation and deployment of software. People can actually build and sell it globally and build larger companies from any part of the world. It's a wonderful time actually. And on the specific part, actually, as the number of softwares are getting increased, I think that adoption becomes really key, right? So right from life cycle of the users, like how they are adopting the software, like when new user gets onboarded, when the users are using the software and they get stuck in different phases of utilizing the software, or as the users are transitioning to different stack of software from one software to upgrading to other one and all. I think throughout, if the company SaaS company specifically start focusing on the experience, how each stage would need different kind of experience and actually start managing that, I think that would help in increasing the adoption and ensuring that the digital tools, whatever getting deployed, they see the ROI for it, what which they are intended to.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else would like to add anything? Arvind, Akash?
So in addition to what Khadim mentioned, what I can certainly add, so this is a good question. Help democratize software creation is what Khadim addressed. And apart from democratizing the software creation, right, at least from our perspective, what we have been doing, I can see that it is also important that how can we democratize the usage of software, right? Now, it doesn't make any sense if a software is available, but it is not accessible by people. So language is one medium that we are using to democratize the usage so that for example, using our technology, any application or any website can be available in any language. So that is democratizing the usage. So that's another aspect that I just wanted to cover.
Right. Yeah, I would be completely aligned with what Kadim said. Right, this is one of the best times to build software. Right, it's so easy. You can get 4 engineers. You don't have to work on the infrastructure. Anyone can build it and deploy it very easily if you use the right tools, of course. Right, and then yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are so many tools out there. Majority, just apart from the core capabilities you want to offer, you'll almost always find a SaaS tool which does everything else. So definitely, yeah. I think we've already arrived at a place where building software is very easy.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So that addresses all the questions which were there. And thank you very much for all the audience. So I will hand it over back to Saurabh. And Saurabh, we are exactly in time. There was 1 hour time and we are just 1 minute to the 1 hour time. So the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mittal. Well, on behalf of Saurabh, I'd just like to thank the entire panelists, Mr. Mittal, Mr. Bhati, Mr. Singh, and Mr. Pani for joining us and giving us your valuable time. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with this, it's time to conclude India Digital Enabler Awards 2020 and Entrepreneur Live Virtual Summit organized by Entrepreneur Media. And now it is indeed my honor to make a few closing remarks on behalf of Entrepreneur Media right now. Well, today's show, which revolved around discussions on digital tech, teach and recognizing the digital tech community at the India Digital Enabler Awards, and also the India Digital Enabler Awards celebrated individuals and organizations across India that enabled brands to transform and enrich their lives through the benefits and opportunities created by digital technologies. Firstly, a big thank you to all the speakers for their valued time and knowledge, and also for those who attended the show and who viewed us live. Thank you for your active participation through your ongoing comments and questions. While we spoke about future technology, changing crisis to opportunity, how to increase SME business model resilience through digital initiatives, how should we move to cloud right now for business, driving organization-wide digital transformation growth, what are the CEO's top concerns 2020 and implications and action points for the tech teams, consumer experience in 2020 and beyond, the future of work, small and mid-size enterprise, digital reinvent and rescale, and lastly, towards the end, how young tech is changing the business technology of tomorrow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for more updates on our events and news on entrepreneurship, please join all our social media handles. On LinkedIn, you can look up for us at Entrepreneur Media India. On Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we're by Entrepreneur IND as one word, which is Entrepreneur Ind. Also subscribe to Entrepreneur Magazine by visiting www.entrepreneur.com. So ladies and gentlemen, till the next event, this is me, Bhavna Bhatia, signing off on behalf of Entrepreneur Media. Stay safe and cheers, and thank you so much for joining us.